Mark, Steven, it is so great to see you guys.
How's it going?
Hey,
Guys.
what have you been building lately?
Yeah, we finished this Fiat 500.
Why are you guys not Mark and Steven, thank you guys so much for joining me today. We are just coming off perhaps the best episode yet, episode 5, when the drama that everyone has been craving the whole time finally heats up. This episode is big for a number of reasons, but the first thing I really want to talk about is some behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on that didn't quite make the cut. Being on LEGO Masters is very difficult work. It is a physical sport in every sense. Mark had a certain craving for burgers. Do you want to share this story with us?
Yeah, it was hard to get enough calories while building for long stretches during the day, right? It's pretty grueling, right? I'm just thinking about hamburgers. That's like clouding my ability to build. I just constantly have hamburgers on my mind. And I started talking to people, other cast members, and I'm like, so, have you ever thought about hamburgers? And then I started expanding the conversation to the producers and crew. They were then thinking about hamburgers and talking about hamburgers. So suddenly, pretty much everybody on the whole studio floor is talking and thinking about hamburgers. They finally relented. They brought the whole cast a bunch of McDonald's hamburgers in our holding area. And so we were just all having hamburgers that night. And whether everyone was suffering or enjoying it, I have no idea. But I was going to town on those hamburgers. I think I had 3.5 or 4, something like that. It was terrific. Yeah.
What a beautiful story, indeed. Certainly one of the highlights of my LEGO Masters experience.
It was my greatest victory, getting the producers to bring us hamburgers. That was honestly impressive, not gonna lie.
So, the big problem that this episode presented is that we ended up building 2 related builds, floating islands. Why on earth floating islands? Where did this idea come from? Was it from Jacob and I assume? Or do you have some other made-up story that you want to?
No, although that'd be hilarious. No, that is not the answer. We were not copying you guys.
Steven, don't lie.
Thank you, Mark. All right.
We were not copying you guys.
Wait, are you accusing me of copying you?
A little bit, but we were not copying. No, I'm kidding.
This interview is over.
We are castle builders at heart, and turns out floating islands is really popular in the castle lineup. I was worried it might be a little bit of a cliche. We did it for this challenge, but you soldiered on and said, let's make a floating island. You're good at those. I'm like, it really is one of Steven's strong points. He's built a lot of them before, and he knows pretty much exactly
how they
were
and how they supposed to
Yeah,
look.
so it would be like we're definitely not want to do something really radically different from what we are good at. So we're trying to use our skills in this kind of competition. So that was most of the thought behind that process.
There were gnomes. Where do the gnomes come from?
Gnomes weren't necessarily our first choice, although they were one of our earlier ideas for what we were going to put on our floating island. We're talking about like bugs, like they actually the bug people lived there, and there were different. No, it was fairies.
We thought we were going to do fairies.
Oh.
We're going to really go all out.
Fairies were first, but then we figured out that Michelle and Natalie had a fairy on their build. Now we're like, okay, well, what else is kind of like unusual? Maybe like sentient bugs, right? So
Yeah,
really,
like,
bugs like inspired stuff. But then we realized that you are using these big wasp bugs.
We're doing gnomes.
We're claiming the gnomes.
Anyone else want to do gnomes? Fight me,
Yeah.
Though Jacob did end up putting a tiny microscale gnome on the back of our build just to spite you, to get the last laugh against and coming up with the idea of a floating island. The only prompt that we have is floating, right? That's half the floating island equation right there,
Yeah, exactly.
A floating island is the perfect vessel for literally anything. And it's hilarious that we pretty much settled on the same things, bugs in buildings.
Yeah.
An infinite number of options to choose from. By chance, it's bugs in buildings. And this is not the first instance of copying or accidental copying.
Alleged copying. You
know,
make
like,
that a thing.
Episode 3 already. We have 2 cakes, which are even more similar, you know? They handled their copying situation much better than we did. The boys getting a little feisty.
Literally screaming at each other across the aisle. It's gonna be gnarly. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's gonna get
know,
ugly.
we're all men and we just want to fight. You know,
Let's do
it's
it.
like we're just
That's
savages.
all men want.
Well, I think copying can be a very bad idea. That being said, it's okay to be inspired by people. In fact, when I first started building floating islands, it was inspired by Tyler Kleitz himself. When he teamed up with some people to make a beautiful diorama that was all floating islands. And I'm like, I want that.
Essentially, most of what you're going to be building is going to be very similar to, if not related to, other stuff that has been made before. Be it Lego Mux or be it actual art, everything that we make out of Lego is replicating something else. You know, I have been inspired by many builders who built stuff long before I got started, and that really springboarded my creativity and inspiration. That it became something that got me going. How do you learn how to paint? You study the masters. How do you learn how to write? You read books and you figure out writing styles. If you see someone do some great texture on a wall or something, apply it in your own way in one of your own ways.
It's going from inspired to inspiring.
Floating island is a pretty basic idea, you know? Like, it was the first thing that came to us, you know? It was the first thing that came to you guys. And so it's taking that idea, you know, throwing waterfalls on it, attaching sticks on the outside of it, making it your own. And I think that's what's so important, and what made those builds still at the end so drastically different from each other. If you put them side by side, the only similarity that they have, you know, is like they are on a rock. By starting with that same base, I think we pushed each other to do really crazy things that if we had not started out on that same playing field, we would have gone completely different direction. If we had just built the floating island, it would have been, you know, a singular floating island with a house on top. We wouldn't have thought about adding all this other stuff to make it stand out. And I think the same can be said for you guys. We're having this great banter back and forth, but we're also pushing the best possible build out of each other.
The nice thing about a floating island is it's a way to do a landscape in an otherwise difficult physical challenge.
Yeah.
And I think that watching you guys, your first build especially, you clearly love to put those nice sculpted landscapes. That's basically all that I do is landscapes. And so it was really a way to bring some of our skills and our expertise to a very weird physical challenge, and still do what we like to do.
It was still us. It was still you.
Yeah.
Like, it was our favorite things.
Castle builders are landscape builders by default, and so it's like in that way we were able to use our strengths. And in a way, like you were saying, we totally split in different directions.
Good way
due
of
to us both having a similar idea. We ended up just like a divergent timelines, you know.
That's a great point, because that's totally, we were trying to give, because this is the first, I would say, creative challenge since the parade float, right? You know,
there's not whatever you want.
Yeah, there's not as much of a box that we have to fit into, and so this is the time to play to your strengths. And like for whatever reason, like the floating brick, you know, didn't pose as much of a challenge to a lot of the teams as I think we thought it would, and so like I think we all felt creatively liberated to kind of pursue whatever it is we want, and that's why we got some really fun concepts that were very true to each team that made their build. Mark and Steven, thank you guys for taking the time to talk to me. I didn't think we were on speaking terms after episode 5, so this was a really cool experience.
We weren't sure if we wanted to. You know, we muscled through. We got it.
It's fine. I can't wait till this is over, though. Holy crap, let's get this done. No, seriously, Jacob and I love you guys. You are awesome to build with. We could have a sick floating island castle collab sometime in the future. I know I haven't done a Lego Masters video in a while, but I hope you enjoyed this one. Maybe we can get these guys back another time to talk about our experiences on the show, and we will see you next time.